So you just filling in for just say, my daughter. She says it's take a good
Okay, well, this is
the joint powers agreement, that must be.
do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just to make sure you're in the right meeting, this is the Calaveras Council of Governments. Please let the record show that we have a full council. We have David Woods as a substitute and Steve Walensky as a substitute or alternate. What would you like to be called?
I'm an alternate for Supervisor Triumph from Calaveras Council.
And David is a public member, and he's been on the council before. Thank you. I'd like to move to the consent agenda. If anyone has an item they would like to remove, discuss, please let me know. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
item C.
Oh,
Item
sorry.
C.
Yeah.
Good.
1 and 2,
Yes.
because we
No,
will be talking about...
I know. I just want to go through the letter a little bit.
Okay. So item 1, 2, A, and B. May I have a motion?
So moved minus item C, 1 and 2.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passes on a 7-0. Thank you. John, item C.
The August 19, 2009 letter from Brian Peters, or to Brian Peters from Caltrans. I just wanted to, I just didn't want this letter just to go into the consent agenda. I wanted to read a couple items out of here because it's going to be pertinent when we talk about the Bear Valley project later, particularly on page 2, second paragraph. It says, Caltrans regards the proposed mitigation for the proposed project significant and unavoidable impacts to state highway system to be inadequate. I want people here on this board to understand what Caltrans is saying about this. And then they go on, the last sentence, it says, the project and all foreseeable future projects would cause SR4 to operate at an unacceptable level of service in 2007.
27.
Or 2027, which is very concerning to me. And then on page 5, the last paragraph, well, actually on page 4, item 2, I'd just like to read that section there. It says, no other potentially feasible mitigation strategies were under consideration. Then it goes on to say, although Caltrans does not endorse any specific mitigation for the impact of the proposed project to State Route 4, the purpose of public information, it will champion equally feasible solutions, as the proposed project is touted as a pedestrian village along with Caltrans esposo for completed streets and context-sensitive solution. It appears consistent with the pedestrian village to consider a transit solution for the partial or whole mitigation to the impact of this development would have to the State Route 4 corridor between Angels Camp and Bear Valley. That a transit solution was never considered is evident by the response contained in the FEIR to our comments, in which the lead agency was evidently unaware of the multimodal transit facility project in Calaveras County, RTP 2007, and could serve as a potential park and ride for Bear Valley. Further, there was failure to discuss or assess and evaluate the ability of various proposed traffic calming improvements in the Arnold Livable Community Plan as potential sources of mitigation, and was considered and was a consideration in early discussions of the project between the lead agency, Calaveras County, Calaveras COG, and Caltrans. And then the final thing I want to point out is on page 5 at the bottom, it says, Caltrans strongly endorses further negotiations with all concerned parties regarding mitigation for these traffic impacts prior to the project approval. And with that, I will make a motion to accept the letter.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on 7-0. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 3, public comment. If any member of the public has an item they'd like to discuss, not on the agenda, please come forward.
Chair Callaway, I'd like to just take this opportunity, seeing no comments from the public, to introduce Mr. Ross Chittenden. He is the new District 10 Caltrans Director, and he's come up to visit us tonight. I had the opportunity to spend about an hour with him earlier this evening to talk about Calaveras projects, and look forward to a long and profitable, so to speak, relationship.
That's good. Profitable's good. Thank you. Welcome to Calaveras and to District 10. Have you worked in the district before?
I have not. Are you finished in the Caltrans report now, or?
Hey, if you're the boss of District 10, we can take you now.
Absolutely. I didn't know if Tim was finished. Yeah, thank you for having me here. The name is Ross Chittenden, and I am the new Caltrans District 10 Director. I think it's now up to 11 days. So I very much welcome the opportunity, and I'm actually honored to be the District Director, and I'm honored that you would have us up here. I've been with Caltrans for 26 years, and I think the profitable comment in Tim's statements were the last 8 years or so I've been in positions up in Sacramento in programming and finance. So certainly when there's good times, I know all the secrets up there, and I know where the money's hidden. Right now, we're not necessarily in that kind of a time period, which is unfortunate, because coming out to the district, I did want to bring a couple of bags of money with me, and not able to do that right now, but as you all know, these are peaks and valleys, and or maybe on a little bit of a downturn, but it's going to turn around, and I very much look forward to that time period. I tell everybody when I go out, I had a staff meeting this morning, I'm very proud to be a Caltrans employee. So if you ever run into me in the supermarket or at a cocktail social, whatever, I never am afraid to say I work for Caltrans. I feel that to be an honor too, and I very much do appreciate partnerships. So Tim and I have a little bit of a relationship with the job I've had in the past, so I very much plan to work with him, with the other Public Works staff in your county. I think we'll get some great things done over the next few years. Would like to just update the board on a few things that are going on with Caltrans. We have some other staff changes, and in fact that probably is one of the reasons led to why I'm here. I think you all know that we have a relatively new director, Randy Iwasaki. Some of you maybe worked with Randy. He was in District 10 probably 8 or 10 years ago as the maintenance deputy. So you may have run across him. He was previously our chief deputy director. He's now assumed the director role with the departure of Will Kempton. Cindy McKim, who was previously our chief financial officer, is now our chief deputy director. I don't know if that's something you knew or not, but Cindy is another person I believe that's worked with Tim, my direct boss when I was there for a while. So she's a great person. Again, she knows where the money is, so that's a great asset for Caltrans. The district continues to work with the COG and the county on a number of Recovery Act projects, so don't hesitate to give us a call, Dan or myself a call, on anything to get those projects through. We're very committed to getting the Recovery Act projects through very quickly. Little promo for the district. We recently, as I came out of Ken Baxter's shop, we recently published a District 10 bicycle guide. I can leave a copy here with Tim if you'd like. It has all the routes in each county within District 10 and some of the bicycle routes in each city within the district. So this will soon be up on our website. I don't believe it's on our website yet, but it will be shortly. Have a few published copies, so happy to leave that with you. I'm sure as you probably know, there's a state of emergency in Mariposa County as a result of the fires. Highway 120 is closed as of the latest information I had, so it's closed to the valley, it's closed to Tioga Pass. I don't think there's any real timeline now for getting that open. I know it's a little south of here, but that's an impact of travelers. One of the items I did want to talk a little bit about related to the budget, I think you're probably aware that Caltrans, as well as many of the other state agencies, are now on a mandatory 3-day-a-month furlough program. In the past, we've had furloughs in the past. I know many of you have had cutbacks as well. In the past, we've typically been able to kind of suck it up. And when we've had a day here and there, 3 days, it's going to be very hard. I don't want to. I think we need to be honest to our employees, be honest to the public, be honest to all of you that it is going to have an impact. This is 15% less hours we can dedicate to the services we provide. We're trying to find a way to prioritize and communicate what that impact will be. The first thing we're doing is looking at our project delivery. One of the successes that's hopefully been discussed with you, and I think I have a copy of it with me, is over the last several years, District 10 as well as all the districts in Caltrans have signed a contract for delivery with Director Kempton that commits we're going to meet these milestones each year, we're going to deliver these projects this year. And every year, District 10 as well as most of the districts have been 100% successful in doing that. I'm not yet ready to let go of that commitment, but it's something we're looking at. I'm going through a prioritization exercise. So as we do that, Tim will be coordinating with you and your staff to make sure that projects that are on your radar are on my radar. I think we have some opportunities in 10 in the partnership we have with the Central Region to not feel these impacts on the project side. So we're going to try to hold all the project schedules. On the maintenance side, response to incidents, response to the winter storms, we're going to have to see how that goes because this really is something that's real. And again, it's something that needs close coordination with the county, with Tim, close communications. So we're working on plans to be more nimble, more efficient. But there is an impact. So I didn't want to come here with bad news, but I wanted to bring the reality that we're facing here and do that with the commitment that we'll communicate with you and partner with you as we make those decisions as they would affect your county. So again, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I'm going to try to make as many meetings as I can, and I can't commit I'm going to make them all, but I made it a priority for me to try to get to as many of the meetings as I can. So I'm sure you will see me again on a regular basis and on an invitation basis. If there's something that you think you want to bring to my attention directly, let me know, and I will definitely get it on my calendar. So
I guess it'll depend on how often you don't show up for snow removal.
Yeah, one of the things, I probably should expand on that. In reaction to that today, and actually we hosted it in Stockton, the different districts that are involved in snow removal got together, and I was reluctant to report on that because I don't have an outcome of that discussion, but we're coordinating with District 9 on the other side of the hill, looking at ways of sharing resources with District 3 to the north. So it's something that we know we need to address. I wasn't just ready yet to tell you how we'll do that, but it's certainly a priority for us. It's kind of interesting. At the same time, we're releasing and I don't recall the specific name of the document, but it's kind of a response plan for opening the passes, because some groups want us to open them and some groups want us to leave them closed, some of the recreational type groups. So they may get the tilt in their direction this year, but we're bringing it together, and again, we'll be in very close communication with you guys as we make decisions.
I don't expect after 11 days that you would know, but we did put an agreement together in the Ebbets Pass corridor with Dinah Fortner.
Okay.
Alpine Calaveras signed a MOU, I guess Dan could tell you what it is, regarding the opening of the pass. We worked with our businesses on both sides. So I just want you to know we have one. If it's going to be modified, I guess we'd like to be part of that discussion.
That sound, I'm glad you brought that to my attention, because that does sound kind of like this document I'm describing. So as you may know, Lori Juergens is my acting maintenance deputy, and I'll talk to Lori when I get back to the office.
She lives in Angels Camp. We got her covered.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that, I'm sure she knows about this MOU, but I'll make sure that as she circulates this other document, we pull that out and make sure we're incorporating
When you say
that.
she's the maintenance acting, what does that mean?
That means Dinah has been moved over to a different role. She's in what we call program project management, so her focus will now be on the capital side of delivering projects. So Lori is acting until I put somebody in there who's permanent. And I hope to do that within probably 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Comments? Thank you very much. We welcome you all the time.
Great. Thanks for having me.
With or without money. Thank you. Okay, we'll get to Dan in a moment. The county report. All of you have met Mr. Garcia.
Tom Garcia, Director of Public Works. Briefly, county report on some of the projects. Transportation funding and outreach. We're still planning on going forward with the outreach project. We have a bit of a reprieve with some court decisions on our RIN fee, but we're not out of the woods. We still need to do the update and identify sources for underfunded projects. So we'll be going out with some public outreach programs a little later this year and early next year. The big news is the State Route 1226 intersection. It's listed as intersection signalization, and that may be a misnomer. What we're looking at is intersection improvements. It could be any number of construction items that are put down. It could be a roundabout. It could be a signalized intersection. It could be a combination of a bypass or bypass lane, truck bypass lanes, and roundabouts. We have Dock and Engineering. Currently, we're negotiating a contract with them. They're an excellent engineering firm. Dealt with them in the past. Looking forward to their hard work on this project. The next project is the Calaveras County Circulation Element, Phase 2. It's part of the general plan update. We're working with the planning department and getting the land use out and the circulation model that will be feeding into our traffic, our traffic consultant. And that's about all we have.
Are there any questions or comments from Mr. Garcia?
I got a question. Tom, at Tom Bell Road and SR4, they just did the striping there. Are you familiar with that at all?
That's not a county project, John.
Oh, that isn't?
No,
Okay, I guess I'll have to. Even on Big Trees Road there?
Yeah,
That's okay.
That's all part of the Caltrans.
Okay. Forget it.
Any other questions?
Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. If you'd like to go home, you can.
Oh, no, there's a lot of things on the agenda that I'm interested in.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brewer, did you want to please come up and give a Caltrans report that's separate? On behalf of the council, thank you for coming to the opening of Highway 4. We enjoyed seeing you there.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Chair Callaway. As far as the Caltrans report goes, District Director Chittenden has covered that. Unless there's something else that the council has for me in terms of questions, that'll be it.
This would be the striping moment, I think.
Well, are you familiar with that intersection? It's at Tom Bell, Big Trees Road, and SR4.
In a vague sense, yes, but I'm sure you're about to enlighten me.
Well, the striping is, I don't know if anybody's driven on that, but the striping is really, it curves way out. It's sort of tough to negotiate. I was just trying to figure out well, maybe I'll ask the supervisors here, is Big Bear Road or Big Trees Road, is that going to be widened? Is that why they pushed that out so far? So that's just a permanent solution for that intersection at this point?
This year, yes, for a while. That was a developer-driven project, Dan.
Yes.
Done under the auspices between the developer, Caltrans. Caltrans came to a public meeting we had in Murphy's. Dinah came to that meeting and some of the staff. And,
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
And what John's saying is it is difficult. And part of it's the locals getting used to the striping.
Well, the radius
Part is
of the center line is much larger than the configuration of the road. You're going from a very wide access to the highway into a narrower road, existing road, and the curve there, the radius is following. It's proportionate to the access, but it gets pretty bad by the time it gets to the existing road. And actually what you do is you curve around and you have to S back in to get into that road, and then there's an intersection right there. I'm concerned about it. I don't know.
I'd like to chime in and say just today I made an illegal turn from the center lane coming on that intersection.
I did
and
too.
the radius and the striping, or where the striping is in comparison to where you enter the turn, is such that, when you're coming up on it, yes, we'll all learn, but we also get a tremendous number of people from out of town on the weekends, and it could be a source of future problems.
Is this a project in progress, or
It's
the work done?
done.
This was the last piece of it.
You might want to take a look at it, John. I'd be happy to be a tour guide, but it's a badly designed intersection. I mean, everybody agrees. Caltrans does, the county does. It's been a drama intersection for 3-4 years.
For us, Ross, just to give you a little more information, it was a permit project that had to do with like Chair Callaway said, a combination of developer-driven improvements through our permits office.
The point I was getting at is what it's probably doing, it's following the normal geometric design from the state route and the width of the access from the state route. But I think I think something could be worked out. It's not going to be to the standard engineering, to the engineering standards. It needs to be an obscure, I think, radius. I really think, I think that's what's happening there is we're keeping to a standard, the engineering standard, and then we aren't going into something that's practical.
Yeah, well, we can take a look at that. I don't see it in my mind. I don't know the plan, but we certainly can look at
Because I can just see a lot of confusion there, potential accidents and that type of stuff, so I just
Okay,
see if
they'll
there's
take a
another way to
look
do
at it, thank you, and see if it needs any modification. Mr. Walensky.
While we're delivering our customary hazing to the new personnel with Caltrans, I would like to, I would like to offer my offices to give you the Change Your Life tour of Upper Highway 26. It's a very exciting area, and we have a lot of ideas about things that might be done for very little money, and even by volunteers around midnight to 2 a.m. that might take care of your problem, but would like to give you a chance to just tour and familiarize yourself with your new realm.
Okay. You
In
can
the
do
winter
that.
when there's snow.
Yes, something along those lines.
I've been on that route once. That's all I can say about that.
Well, it was memorable anyway.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, comments
Yes,
that
Chair.
you'd like to?
Dan, I've got a couple of questions. I don't know if it's appropriate for that when we talk about the bypass or now, but I'll just bring them up now. The first one is, I'll get the easy one out first. Where do we stand with the shoe fly?
I can address that. It's, as I understand it, it's about 2 weeks opening.
Because that 2 weeks keeps moving 2 weeks. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I was told earlier when I was contacted by the mayor that it would be in mid-September.
Okay. My next
And I
question.
drove by there today. It looks like there's not much left.
And now that we have this wonderful bypass, we have two other issues that need to be addressed. I think the mayor talked to you about them, but the council needs to know. And one of our biggest concern is the speed coming into south or north on Highway 4 onto 49. There is no reduction of speed, so theoretically, you'd be at 55 crossing Highway 49 if you got a green light, and if you weren't a little bit diligent about your driving. So I know the mayor's addressed this, so I won't prolong it, but I'd like to have the support of COG to make sure that this group moves forward with some type of a speed reduction so we don't have the worst case scenario and then we get excited about it is guess what I'm getting at, and without spilling it out. So
yeah, I understand that. That type of facility actually has some governing law, but in terms of speed reduction, I've committed to have a speed survey conducted. That's typically a 6-week process. We're going to try to get it done in 3 weeks. Again, I drove that this afternoon, and I certainly felt the concern going westbound. Eastbound, I didn't quite feel it as much. It's a little more built out, but I certainly understand the concern, and we're going to take a look at it. There's no question about that.
thank you, appreciate that. And the second issue has to do mostly with economics. Now that we have this bypass, it's wonderful. We don't have all this traffic going through downtown, but with that, we don't have a lot of tourists going downtown.
Right.
And the signage is, we're being told, is quite a ways off, and the city did their diligence and got the sign package in an appropriate time frame. So I just ask you to take a look at that and move forward in that, because we've got the economy is bad enough, and then when we don't point people in there to get whatever nickel we can, it multiplies the problem. So.
Yeah. Staff showed me the sign plan late last week, and we'll sit down with the city. I think there are some things we're going to be able to do. There's some things we may be able to just partner on. I can't commit to you, and I don't think I could promise to you we can do everything that's on the sign plan. But we'll take a look at it and then do what we can. And it might it might be another opportunity for partnering where the city does some, we do some, and we get close to what you want.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it.
Is it easy now?
Well, I tried not to tie it into your introduction.
This is an easy night.
I know, that's
New guy
true.
gets a pass.
We don't have to frighten anybody off.
Well, I guess I'll do one, Dan. The county on snow, we're working on an MOU of some kind, an agreement with Caltrans to do some plow outs on the upper Highway 4 corridor. And so we're just massaging that. we, the county, would like to get that completed prior to the snow coming. So, I mean, the ball's in our court. Mr. Garcia?
We have been in discussions with Caltrans maintenance on that, and right now we're identifying the locations. We're working out the old agreement, finding out who knew exactly where those locations were and how they came about. But the document that we received
from me,
yes, is a duplicate of what we had, but it misses a couple of the key points, and we're going back at the old people. I'm sorry, the historic.
That makes you
A spring chicken.
Don't record that. No.
Okay,
To the knowledge base of the people who've been doing it for years, so that they can tell us where these unique locations were.
well, Scott and I went out and we did the location. So, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
We're working for it.
Hey, that's
Thank you.
fine. Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to move to item 6. Mr. McSorley, are you going to take these, please?
Yes, Chair Callaway, we really don't have too much to add. I know that there's been some discussion about some of the cost estimates for some of the projects, and we are reviewing those in much greater detail. Those did come from a scope of work that was developed to get the projects done and a proposal from consultants, but we're going to take another close look at those. And then those are the T projects. And then in terms of the Wagon Trail project, two, and I think I've indicated that in my staff report, two issues of significance. We did get rights of entry from one of the largest property owners out there, so our team has been able to get out on site and begin their field reviews, and that's huge as part of the process, so that we can then input that data into the quantum software, which gives us a variety of corridors based on certain opportunities and constraints. The other thing that we're working on is the STIP part of that, State Transportation Improvement Program. There's currently last year, there was programmed $250,000 to match some high-priority project earmark money. We're anticipating that this year, due to the STIP problems, and I think I've talked a little bit about in my staff report, we'll probably push that out. That sounds like bad news, but it's okay, because the current expenditure plan gives us a couple years and a little bit of flexibility in there. So those are the two main things that we're working on with the Wagon Trail. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. McSorley?
Tim, at the SR4 and Country Club, that's a Caltrans. That's a Caltrans project. So that's totally funded by Caltrans.
Yes. We worked for 4 years getting that.
Yeah. Do we know how much that thing is costing?
I don't.
Between $600,000 and $700,000.
I'm not sure. Dan, Mr. Brewer, were you able to?
I don't have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd asked them Dan that question, and they sent me a document that I couldn't quite decipher. It was in Caltransese, so we'll get that information for you. But I would presume that it's somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000.
I was just curious how much it was running.
They've done it again. It's a Tyker project,
Yeah.
and
You and Michael.
they've done a good job. They're doing a good job. I think.
And it was a standard Caltrans report, but I couldn't make head or tails out of it. So
That's all. I was looking for a ballpark of what it was running.
it's probably about that. I mean, that's
Okay, are there any questions on those projects? I'd like to move to item 7. It's an action item, the allocation of the local transportation funds. We have a resolution.
If I may briefly, Chair Callaway, a couple of typographical errors. The cover memo indicates that fiscal year 2008-2009, it's actually 9/10, and it's just in the initial cover memo. The resolution is correct, however, and we would recommend your approval.
And this is a cut from last year.
Yes.
And Are there any questions on this? We've discussed this in the past. Any comments, editorials? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 7-0. Thank you. Item 8, the strategic plan permanent status.
Yes, Chair Callaway, a couple of little cleanups, if you will. First of all, on the second page, under option 3, that we talk about establishing the COG in state statute. I had referenced government code sections. I apologize. Those did not get copied and attached. But really all they are, and I can get those for you each individually after the meeting, there are code sections that establish some of our sister agencies. El Dorado is one, Placer is another, Nevada, transportation commissions. It establishes those in state statute. I can get you those numbers, those government code sections. I apologize for that. But basically what this is a follow-up to the strategic planning process that talked about how we, and I use the quotes, obtain permanent status for the Council of Governments. If you recall, during that process, there was some concern that the current JPA, and there was a handout that gives you the JPA sections. The issue was that under the JPA, there's no criteria, if you will, that would I guess, justify either the city or the county withdrawing from the JPA. And so that was one of the alternatives, is that we just inject some criteria or some conditions, some cause, if you will, into the JPA. That was one of the options, option number 2. And then option number 3 was, in fact, to seek a legislative sponsor to have us put into state statute. So with that, I will answer any questions that
This
you
is
may have.
open for discussion. Any questions before I open it to the public? I'd like to open this topic to the public. If any member of the public or county staff would like to address this, please come forward.
Tom Garcia, Director of Public Works. Reviewed the staff report, and being new to the jurisdiction, I'm concerned a bit about establishment of a permanent COG at this point. What I'd really like to focus on is the adoption, in option 1, the adoption of policies and procedures. And once those policies and procedures are that's in the last paragraph on the first page. Yeah. Once those policies and procedures are put into place and both the county and city are satisfied with the role of the COG and the makeup of the COG, then I think we would support establishment of a COG as a permanent agency. But again, I would like to make sure that the policies and procedures are in place first, which identify the roles of the jurisdictions and of the COG prior to going to establish or getting a sponsor to make the body a permanent one. I do support the COG and all the work that they do. Again, I'd like to see the horse before the cart in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Tom, have you had a chance to read the JPA?
Not the full JPA, no. I've read some of the excerpts that are a little unclear. I was left with some questions, and again, there is some cleanup that needs to be done in various sections of transit. The way that priority projects are identified, things like that, sponsors of projects, whether or not the COG is a planning agency or a agency that manages construction projects, things of that nature, that I think should be clarified.
The question I would ask is between option 2, and this is not to you, Mr. Garcia, but to anyone else. Between option 2 and option 3, at least on those two, what is the most feasible way of getting something accomplished in a reasonable amount of time, especially considering furloughs?
Well, we're not suffering from furloughs at this point in time. I think that the most actually let me back up, because I agree with Tom. There are some issues with the JPA that when you start reading it and trying to apply it in today's environment, that there are perhaps no, they're not perhaps, there are some areas that need to be clarified and revised and maybe even rewritten and maybe even whole new sections added. I'm not quite sure. But I've got a list as I was going through it. We've got some hiring policies and procedures that have not been formally adopted. We've got some references to the Brown Act that are just that. We need to make sure that that's incorporated fully. The org chart, and I'm just kind of going through RTP update timeframes, transit development plan. And of course now we have AB 32 that may have some applicability. So I think that there are some issues that we definitely need to try and tackle. And I think that this issue we can incorporate very easily into that process. So to answer your question, I think it's almost like an option 4 is that we try and fold all of these into a process to fix it in its entirety, working through the TAC or through the admin committee or a special committee that you want to set up between council staff, city staff, and county staff. I'm perfectly open to any of those options. I would tell you that my guesstimate, given our other workloads, and I can't speak for Public Works or the city, but my guess is that it would be probably at least 6 months before we're able to have an outline for you and bring that back, have a discussion on the issues and get some more direction, and then probably have the council approve the language and then go to city and county and see if there's some addition. So it would be an iterative process, but I would guess there's probably 6 months would be a time frame, and that might even be a little bit optimistic, quite frankly. But it was something that we could work on very easily, absolutely.
I would like to make a comment. Sure. I believe that the COG should not pursue being independent at this time, but should focus being the regional transportation agency, which is the reason the COG was created. And I believe the JPA should be revised to address more specifically what activities the city and county expect the COG to provide. It's important for the COG to be responsive to the city and county and realize the COG works for us. The JPA should be revised to implement specific safeguards in order to prevent and solve disagreements that may arise. The revisions to the JPA should be a collaborative effort by the city, county, and COG staff.
Any other comments?
Just a question back to Tim, that plus or minus 6 months or more, would that also, you expect that our policies and procedures would be completed within that time as well, so that it would all fold together? I know that's a big... How's that coming?
We have a draft of the financial procedures. Right now we're working on the employee handbook, and I think the next step is actually incorporating aspects of the JPA, the organizational chart. A lot of the things we've created and evolved over the last years. For example, we've all approved job descriptions, we've all approved our org charts, the career progressions, we've approved policies and procedures for the organization, the meetings, numerous policies and procedures have been created. It's just a matter of putting them all together, so to speak. It is time consuming. It really is time consuming, but we're working on it. So I think 6 months
maybe pushing it?
Well, I think it would be pushing it, but I think we could really, as Tim said, maybe get an outline, especially if we bring together sort of a collaborative team of county, city, and COG staff as representatives to really dig through what we've got, outline what we need, and start filling in the blanks. I think we could do that.
It sounds to me like a kind of a partnership
Yes, absolutely.
tool also.
Now remember, Melissa, you want Friday off, so I don't know that we're... we fully envision that it's going to be a cooperative effort, and we endorse everything that's been said here, but it is a fairly huge undertaking, and I think that the folks who have been on the council over the last couple of years really have seen and witnessed the evolution of, if you want to call it a little bit more sophistication from what we've had during its formative years. So we're probably teenagers and looking to become in the terrible 20s at some point. Yes.
Mr. Ellis, do you have some comments you wanted to make? I know this is an issue that's...
No, everything that's been said makes sense, and I think it would probably be a good idea to table this for 6 months, and we'll bring it up and see where we're at.
Well,
That would be a resounding endorsement of option number 1, it looks like.
Well, not really.
Well, no, I don't even think that we should even pass a resolution at this point. I think we just table the whole issue until we get some of these things worked out and not even take a position on it at this point.
Except that it really, I kind of sense a sort of consensus on the board that we're very supportive of the efforts that have been discussed. And if anything, we would want to make sure that the entire team, both the COG staff and the county staff, feel that we're behind their efforts to go forward. So it's, not really a status quo. It's kind of, in my way of thinking, more a direction to get going on revising the joint powers agreement. It's really option 2 in my mind.
But I would
But
see
not a
this
resolution,
as,
yeah.
we need to give direction
That's
that
where I was going.
the policies and procedures need to be updated. Those will incorporate changes to the JPA, and then you can attack the option 2, revising the JPA, primarily Section 15, once you have those, shall we say, internal housekeeping issues all brought up.
Exactly.
So it's a combination of 1 and 2, and I would be willing to make a motion to that.
I would second that.
okay, I have a motion, I have a second, and then I have discussion, because I'd like to weigh in on this. This has not been discussed with the Board of Supervisors yet. At the moment, I do not believe the Board of Supervisors, because of just various issues that have happened over the last few years, would be supportive of making changes we would want it. We still want, I think, the same as what Elaine said. We'd have to give it a lot more thought in terms of changing the withdrawal portion of the joint powers agreement. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be modified, but what is the purpose of the Council of Governments? What kind of agency do we want it to be as a city and county? And I think those questions need to be answered before we go down the path of making that decision. I guess I'm open to represent the COG's view to the Board of Supervisors, but as the Board of Supervisor representative on the COG, I don't think the board's there yet.
Well, a question about that. I think what I was trying to say, and maybe, I'm not sure, David, you can clarify where you were coming from, if you're in a similar place or not, was that not so much direction to our staff to make the revision happen that makes us permanent. We're actually kind of changing what's written here in a way. My thinking was to give them direction to continue with the work they've been doing and get with county and city to prepare a draft to bring the JPA up to date and to make a better document out of it whether or not that leads to making COG permanent, I kind of agree that we really can't, we're not there yet. We really have to take a look at all these other portions of things and make this a package that works, and then it'll need to be presented to all the partners to the agreement. So
I don't believe my motion indicated that we would attack Section 15, and
Right.
at least in terms of investigating it until the policies and procedures. I think it's important to have stakes in the ground and timelines, and I think if staff is directed that in 6 months, policies and procedures will be, bring it back to the COG, we'll update that, then the next step would be to start investigating what might be possible in the JPA.
as far as Section 15 is concerned.
Or any other changes to the
Because it
JPA.
sounded
Okay, that
like-
the item on the agenda
Right.
is which of the alternatives the COG would like to pursue.
And I think you're right that I
That's
support you.
that's the item on the agenda. I'm not, what David's saying is totally
Is a different
probably
thing.
appropriate, and it should, I can poll. Poll's the same as a vote. I don't care what you use it.
Well, thank you for that
We can have a
clarity.
discussion, but that's not the formal item on our agenda. So I guess I'd like to take, is there any action we want to take on the alternative and then just give direction?
Well, first
to the
off,
COG?
we've got a motion, a motion and a second right now. Do you want to withdraw the motion for right now, or,
Or I would be willing to modify the motion to be specific that we set a 6-month timeline for the policies and procedures to be brought back in front. And we will table, how about we table other options until the policies and procedures are approved? So we'll basically revisit the other options after policies and procedures.
So I'm going to just feedback. Tim, I think what we're saying, do any of the other council members have something they'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I would just like to add that, in the current JPA right now, if the COG, for some reason, if the city or the county decided to disband the COG, it would revert to an LTA. And what that would mean is that there would no longer be public participation on this board. So that is why I, as a board member and being a member of the public, I think that's vitally important to this board in regional transportation planning. And that is why I would like to see a permanent status for the agency that's going to be responsible for the regional transportation in this county. And I think it would be to everyone's benefit for that, because I think that is part of the overall partnership, is the public being in the deliberations. When you open for public comment, that's what it is, it's public comment. And then when it gets closed, the public can't be in the deliberations anymore, it's whoever's on the board. And I think the public should be in the deliberation when it comes to our regional roads. So, but I'm in favor of tabling this, and I think, in 6 months, and to bring it back.
Well, okay. The issue of doing direction, like what's given, you have the direction. That's not an agenda item. That's not something we're voting on. You have direction. Then the issue of, do we want to postpone this item? That's, we have a motion and a second on that. I'm going to kind of split David's motion up if he doesn't mind.
I would be willing to amend to tabling this issue for 6 months while the policies and procedures come through. Would the second be willing?
Do I have a second on that?
Yes.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 7-0. I want to go back. John, did you want to make a motion then on one of these options?
No, I just want to see the whole thing tabled at this point, and we'll address the issues. I mean, this is what we've got to do. We've got to weed through all this. That's part of having a regional transportation agency being part of the overall government, the scheme of government, so that Public Works know, what we do. We know, what we need to do with Public Works and all the other agencies in the county. So it makes appropriate sense to
Okay, fine.
to do this.
Any questions, Mr. McSorley?
Thank you.
Ms. Eads, any questions, clarification? All right. I'd like to move to the next item, please. Regional Transportation.
Yes, Chair Callaway, this is basically just a kind of an update or informational item, if you will. We've been talking about the RTP. Actually, I went back and looked at minutes as far back as a year ago. We knew that AB 32 was going to be a huge driving force in the RTP update. Given our work with the U-Plan process and some of the other agencies that are doing rural blueprinting, you put all those things together, coupled with the fact that we did not do an EIR with our last RTP update, kind of caused me to step back and rethink. So I really just, again, kind of an introduction, if you will, as to what we anticipate to be the process. And I have, as I indicated in my memo, talked to Mr. Garcia, and I have to admit that I think I saw a little twinkle in his eye when we talked about it. And at least it was a twinkle to me. I don't know. Maybe it was just the shine off my head. I'm not quite sure. But we do have a number of issues that need to be tackled with the RTP update that we will be scheduling for our next year's OWP.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Just one. I wanted to thank you for including an acknowledgement of AB 32. Sometimes we have deniers in the area that would rather this go away, but the fact is it's a law, and that we need to respond to it is a little overdue, actually, in the county. Frequently, transportation groups think of this as reducing commute lanes, making greater efficiencies within the transportation system, and doing good work with public transit as well, all of which I support and think are good ideas. But I would also, and also getting people on bicycles where possible, or pedestrian walkways. There's another aspect to it in this county that we are really not paying a great deal of attention, and I don't know whether COG would even feel it has jurisdiction. But there's a group that's been meeting for the last 8 months. It's Calaveras Consensus. It's now called Calaveras Amador Consensus. They're dealing with forestry issues and issues of carbon sequestration and what kinds of forests, healthy forests, doing better at reducing greenhouse gases, and burning forests being probably one of the great producers of that carbon. So the hope is that we'll have an approach to our forests that's part of that plan. And because there's a cogen plant that's going to take things that used to be burned and wasted, doing a almost zero emission plan down there in Buena Vista, it would seem to me important that we include that in our planning and that we get credit for it, knowing that we are in some credit deficit. So I would invite representatives from COG to begin attending that process so that you can incorporate it into the plans and possibly gain much more value for the changes and mitigations we need to make here than you might get just through transportation planning.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
I just want to say I appreciate your comments, and I really like the fact that it's acknowledged that forest fires or wildfires are not beneficial to trying to mitigate greenhouse gases, in that a healthy forest is. And I think that's very important. But I don't know how much the Regional Transportation Board will be involved with that particular issue of it. But I would like to say we do have a bicycle and pedestrian general plan that hasn't been adopted by the board. I would like to see that adopted. And it's like the Arnold Mobility Plan, which incorporates and connects within our community those pedestrian pathways and bicycle paths. And I think it's important that that gets adopted. And for the likes of me, I can't understand why these very good plans that have been community There's been a lot of community input, a lot of community consensus, which, like up in our area, it's very difficult to get. And I would like to see us adopt these plans so that when projects come along, they have more meaning instead of saying, well, this is just, let me blow this thing off and let me see what we can do here. It would be much better having that plan so that everyone knows that this is a document, a policy for whatever community it's governing, or for the bicycle paths, and I think it would be beneficial to adopt those.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, in as much as I represent the town of West Point, which 7 years ago put forward a complete bike plan and has yet to have one small bit of it implemented, even though there were 3 phases and it was approved, and it several times had funding which disappeared miraculously. So you're right, things do get blown away, but having a number of people in the room that helped work on that, or are representing positions that did, you're right. That's a big piece of AB 32 too.
And I'd also like to say, I think if we do get those done, that from an economic standpoint, I think those are some unique features to this county that we'll be able to offer for economic growth here. That will be even more of a reason for people to come here and spend some money, which we desperately need.
Good enough.
Yes, we brought up the bike and pedestrian plan many times in the boardroom for approval. And I think when we do the EIR and the general plan, it's going to be coming along with the Arnold.
If I could contribute one thought, many times transportation is looked at through a legacy viewpoint, especially in light of AB 32. I think that one of the things we may want to look at is how do we minimize impacts of transportation in the future?
Yes.
How do we get the last mile of high-speed internet? How do we put ourselves where people have the ability to telecommute, telework, and not drive 5 days a week, 300-mile round trips every day? That may be part of it, and I know there are some telecommunications initiatives in the county, in the foothills, and I'd like to see more mention of that as a way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
We need a broad view.
We are working on that. Golden State just pulled out of the partnership.
But I'd like to see the transportation people sort of acknowledge and try to bring that in, because I do think that's a missing element of our discussions about transportation, especially if we ever get to more peak oil. If peak oil would come to pass in terms of much higher cost, you will see a huge economic disincentive to live in these remote areas. If we don't find either local economies or telecommunication, we may see a lot of our telecommuters or not be able to make livings. Traditional commuters not make livings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? I'd like to move to item 10. Bear Valley, option 1, 2, or 3. Mr. McSorley.
Yes, Chair Callaway, I was asked to put this item on the agenda. Since I put this packet together, there have been some developments. I was not at a closed session that the Board of Supervisors had, but I've had some discussions about what the implications would be with Mr. Garcia specifically, and what the county. I saw a copy of the county's letter. What I would recommend is that this item be continued for a month. It's my understanding that the Planning Commission in Alpine County has directed their staff and their project proponent to meet with county staff, Caltrans staff, and us to perhaps, if you will, renegotiate the mitigations. So,
and CSER.
And CSER, that's correct. So I would recommend that this item be continued for 1 month.
Any comments, questions? I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and I have to say Mr. Buckley truly represented. He got up before I did, so kept me short. I thought truly represented the concerns that Calaveras County had on this issue, among other issues that he had. He did reference the Caltrans letter. When I spoke on why we were asking for the funds ahead of time, which goes back to what John Ellis said about the Arnold Mobility Plan, trying to use those funds. So I think I would support what Mr. McSorley wants unless anybody has an issue and they'd like to proceed with this. Steve?
I don't have an issue, and I agree that it's a good idea to try to give diplomacy an opportunity. Wanted to mention that from my kitchen window I can see Alpine County, and that doesn't make me an expert on it, but I do think it's important, especially for those of us in representing upcountry districts, that we have good relations with them. We actually have pretty decent in most issues, and this does threaten that to some extent, but having been on the receiving end of transportation-related lawsuits from other counties, as you may recall, Tuolumne County didn't appreciate some of the development moves that we made in the Lake Tulloch area. I think there are better ways than leading with lawyers when an opportunity like this presents itself for rational discussion, so I really want to applaud the diplomats in their efforts and wish them good success. We can always bring out the cudgels and, flog each other, but this is a good moment for us to get it right and make sure our interests are represented, but that our neighbors are not harmed.
Mr. Ellis?
Well, I too am very glad that the doors got open for negotiations, because they seemed to slam shut rather quick, and I think it led to that feeling of non-cooperation and possible division between a very good partnership that's worked out to date. And I hope, I would like to send a message to Alpine County is that we are looking to be a good partner with them. We just want a fully functional highway system, and I can speak for the community of Arnold in particular, and I know Murphy's is, we want it to work. We don't want to have a problem that, like you said, Steve, down the road, it's going to materialize, and everyone's going to say, well, who was asleep at the wheel? And
the answer would be look in the mirror.
Exactly. And so I'm happy to see that. And I want to bring it full circle back to the AB 32, and I want to emphasize this, to staff in particular, about the park and ride. If we've got limitations, we've got environmental limitations on SR4. We're going to have to start being creative in our solutions. And I want to point out once again that in this project, you're going to have so many residential units that are being built. That's understood. You've got so many commercial units that are being built. That's understood. The other part of this equation is the visitors that are coming on a daily basis to Bear Valley and that are just going to be commuters. And they're going to have a parking facility up there. And having that parking facility opens the door to charge for parking, which I'm sure that they're going to do, and it further opens the door to help support a mitigation for a park and ride system. So I just want to point that out. It's food for thought. And if people choose to drive up the hill in their own car instead of taking a public transportation system, they can do it. But everything today is costing for those decisions, and I want to point that out. That's
Chair, I'd like to make a quick comment on this. Since I'm new to the council, I did spend the time and effort to read the minutes. I also read Caltrans's letters until my eyes glazed pretty well. As a CEQA preparer, though, I'm fairly familiar with the details of the process. One of the real challenges, as I see it, is no matter how much good diplomacy or good faith, if people are basing their negotiating points from flawed studies that have significant shortfalls, how can we ever come up with reasonable compromise solutions? And it's a game of negotiation. Let's put a flawed, short study down. Let's ask for very little in hopes that we end up in the middle. That is where I think that we've got to be careful in how we proceed, is that, and I asked the question as I was reading this, who's keeping count? Does Caltrans have a scoreboard when somebody, abuses, I use that term carefully, and I'm not accusing Alpine County possibly, but the people either doing the study or directing the studies, abuses technical reports that are supposed to have guidelines that they adhere to. So I really want to make sure that we do not beggar the future of Calaveras County residents by giving entitlements that may not come back to haunt us for 10 or 15 years, but then we find ourselves really broken. Because I think we've seen a history of that, and we need to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. Thank you.
We agree, which is one of the reasons we asked for the funding ahead of time, paid in 5 years versus over the life of the project, so we could do something. We have in the county some internal issues on the use of those funds, but my question, though, maybe Mr. Garcia or Mr. McSorley, who's going to orchestrate that meeting? And if you all haven't, I need to follow that through.
I'll volunteer me.
Well,
I'm more than happy to do whatever I can.
I don't think
Okay.
so. I'm at.
Who are the diplomats?
Yes, what's the closest thing to a neutral third party or a universally trusted figure? That's what
I think we need to discuss this internally, but there's several parties, and part of the recommendation is should the Alpine staff and the developer be there initially. I think it should be. It's an open process, and we need to work this through. But I just felt like I needed to get down a path and make sure that we're putting it together. We contact Alpine and see how they would like to participate. It is their project, and we just need to be respectful of that.
I'll offer that we'll work through the CAO's office to establish the contacts and set up a meeting, if that would be acceptable.
I think I'll be involved. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this?
I would just like to say, if this thing does go south again, that I think it's a good idea, what we had talked about before about having an emergency meeting. If there's an approval, or it looks like there's going to be approval of this, or there's some major complication, I think there's some options that we can have, and I think, to bring all the people together and have some discussion about this amongst this board, or maybe we can have a joint session of boards, and talk about it. But this is very important. It's going to be very beneficial when this project, if and when this project happens, and I think we've got to put our best foot forward on this. Absolutely.
They've reduced their units, their equivalent. Their units have been reduced substantially.
Well, then, see, that's concerning from the standpoint that they've already certified the environmental impact report. So, and the environmental impact report is identifying impacts based upon, what they were proposed units. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for them, actually.
Underreported impacts if they didn't follow all of the Caltrans traffic study guidance. Underreported. So I don't care how much money you think you're supposed to get, if it's a fraction of what you should have had in the long run, that's what's important. First get the right amount, then deal with how you get the money.
Wow.
Those are some of the dilemmas.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Dan, did you want to make any comments on your epistle to Bear Valley? No. Okay, thank you. Caltrans will be part of the discussion. All right, Mr. McSorley, your report, please.
Are we going to table this then? Should we just table this off calendar?
I'm sorry.
Next month.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Is there, if anyone wants to make a motion, I'll
So
entertain
moved.
it.
Well, I would rather table it for next month, actually, because then we got a status.
I move that we
Okay.
table it for 1 month.
Okay.
Okay, John will second
I
it.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 7-0. Thank you. Tim?
Thank you, Chair Callaway. I have just a couple of items to add to my staff report. Beginning this month, we will be begin our advertising for our public member, as we do every year. And there is a package of information that we have along with the application that we will send out in the advertising. Also, next TAC meeting later in a couple of weeks, we will begin the call for projects for the 2010-2011 overall work program. As you recall, that draft is due to Caltrans March 1st, so we have to start working on that. And then finally, and I have to crow a little bit, I've been working with staff at CTC, California Transportation Commission. They have begun a program where they have town hall meetings up and down the state. And I was lobbying to have one in Calaveras, and I've been successful. I'm not quite sure the date yet, but the CTC will be holding a town hall meeting in Calaveras County. I'm going to probably try and approach Ironstone Vineyards to host that for us. It'll probably be sometime in either the spring or the fall. So we look forward to having that. That's going to be a pretty big deal, having the CTC here in the county. With that, I have nothing else to add unless you have any questions.
Any questions of Tim? Mr. Somerset?
Nothing to add to the written report, but as you all probably read in the in the media, or maybe you attended, I know Councilmember Maurer was there. We took an enormous step as part of the Valley Springs plan, identifying some tentative boundaries, which at this point include Rancho Calaveras. And so with this tentative boundary, we can start moving forward now with land use and circulation plans. So
Was it that colorful about including Rancho Calaveras?
well, it I think caught a lot of people by surprise. However, the initial survey that went out, which Rancho Calaveras was the largest respondent, 82% of them said, we feel like we're part of Valley Springs. So I wasn't surprised that such a large percentage wanted to be part of the planning effort.
And the town of Paloma wishes to express its gratitude for your moving in the other direction.
Okay, thank you. Any
Tyler?
questions?
Tyler, what's going on with the San Andreas mobility plan?
The San Andreas plan has taken another kind of turn in the road, and we met with planning staff, and it was recommended that an initial study probably wouldn't, and the adoption of a negative declaration probably wouldn't get us where we wanted to go, and so now we're trying to coordinate a meeting to understand exactly how the San Andreas plan is being captured as part of the general plan update. Our hope is that it will be programmatically as part of the EIR, but we're still waiting to hear that.
Are we still proceeding with the general plan on a stepped EIR? Is that still the direction the board's going?
No, except for the housing element. I'm doing the housing element because it's due now, separate.
Yeah, but the
rest of it-
EIR for the general plan, will that be a stepped EIR?
No, I
No,
don't
the
think so.
intention is to try to be all-inclusive in all of the community plans, all of the elements, all in one.
Well, what I was talking about, I think it's a stepped EIR that, if you adopt a stepped EIR for the general plan, then when projects come along that fit within the desires of the general plan, then you can,
Yeah.
instead of having to
Okay,
reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I understand
John,
the term.
yeah, we're doing that.
Okay. I was just curious.
If a project comes in and planning knows that in Steve's community or whatever, that this is the wishes of the community because of work they've done, they're going to do it.
There have already been at least 2 instances in which favorable reviews have been made on projects that created jobs. based on community plans that had been voted for and adopted by the group.
Well, that may be part of your conversation then, is understanding that this is going to be a stepped EIR, and then, that may help you with what you're doing with the San Andreas plan.
And I think, that's the purpose of the meeting, is for the, all the stakeholders who've been kind of helping this project along, and have a good understanding so they can feed back to their respective community members what's happening.
Okay.
Tyler's work, by the way, in case people hadn't noticed, has been quite heroic, along with other staff members who have braved all kinds of what we would call in whitewater experience heavy hydraulics.
Is that a 3 or 5?
It's a class 5 plus, I think.
Are we talking about the Tuolumne?
No, Cherry Creek.
Okay, thank you. No further comments or questions? I'd like to move the city council have a report.
I don't have anything.
No? Okay. I move to council. Do any of the council members have anything? I do. Please mark your calendars, September 12th. We have the Ebbets Pass National Scenic Byway event, of which the COG was instrumental in getting us the National Scenic Byway designation. There'll be rock and roll and music down in Hermit Valley, and the power needed for the instruments will be generated by solar. The Arnold Rim Trail will be having events at Cedar Center. We'll be explaining the Arnold Rim Trail to the public and having mini, as in M-I-N-I, hikes, and Tyler might lead a bike tour, I'm not sure. So please put it on your calendar. We'd love to see you up at the, in the Ebbets Pass corridor. Thank you. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned till the first Wednesday